Chief Technical Officer. Captain Eric with us here tonight. Captain Ron is MIA, or actually he is flying with an elite custom coaching program client. And he's going down to Cabo right now. I doubt that he'll have the bandwidth to actually watch our show tonight, but I'm sure he'll comment once he gets there. So he's flying down to tonight, and then flying back with his coaching student back to the States. And I believe, actually, I don't even know where exactly he's flying back to, but he will be back the day after tomorrow. And he will be back for next week. So, but in the meantime, we have a show to run because this is our weekly Fearless Flight live show. And it's basically where if you are afraid to fly, or if you know somebody who's afraid to fly, this is the show where you want to tune in every week. It's every Tuesday at 6:30 Pacific, because we're discussing all things fear of flying. And today, what we're gonna talk about is we still got our Kindle holiday special on. A little bit later, more about that. We have a poll question. We have some great successes from our Birds of a Feather Facebook group. Quick sneak peek of our upcoming classes in 2020. We got some aviation news and a brand new flying over water online masterclass. But let's start with the Kindle holiday special. So for the next couple days, we're gonna raise the price back up to its regular price on January 2nd. So you actually have all year to get it, but hurry up, because the year, actually for some of us, the year is closer to coming to an end than others, because it's already 9:30 here on the East Coast. So anyhow, if you go click on that link, I'll put it in the description. And right now the Kindle is priced at $2.99, which is perfect. It's an interactive book. So we got hot links in there where you can get more information. And actually, Eric, your boss, I always forget that your boss actually wrote the foreword, Doug Parker, right? He's the CEO of your company. Is that you guys? Do you ever have you ever met him? Have you been in?
I have, because he was the chairman of my original airline here, America West. Mm-hmm. And we were a much smaller, actually over 10 times smaller airline at the time. And so everybody kind of knew everybody and walked by them, and the executive suites were open, and we would occasionally be up there if we had other business. Hi, how are you? And that kind of thing. And I would see him at social events, and he's a very gregarious guy, and obviously great big brain and remembers people really well. So I used to see him either at social or business functions, but since mergers number 2 and 3, he's no longer in Phoenix, he's in Dallas. But he still does present himself to the employee groups and talks about what's happening and what plans are for next year, and takes questions and that kind of thing. And it's quite a shock from previous CEOs who the employees never saw. And so they're getting to learn what he's like. But I used to see him a lot, but I just don't now, because I'm remote. I'm here in Phoenix and he's in Dallas.
Well, and for anybody who doesn't know, American Airlines is the largest airline, I think, by employees out there, period. I think there's 15,000 pilots. Is that, or somewhere in the neighborhood?
I think we just bumped 16, which is mind-numbing to all of us. And we must have 40 to 50,000 flight attendants. And I couldn't begin to tell you how many mechanics. And the training center and the base in Dallas are bigger than most Midwestern towns with a roof on top. And I used to go to training a day early to walk through there to find out where the classrooms were in the simulator, just so I wouldn't get lost in the training center and starve to death when I was supposed to show up for a training event.
Oh, wow. All right. So So I just want to make note. I am every once in a while looking at the comments. Obviously, running the show or being on the spotlight. I won't be able to comment, but I will put all these links in afterwards. Let's move on to our poll question. So we have a 30-second poll question for you, and if you just go again, either just type the link or wait for me to put it in the comment section. Basically, we want to know from you, knowing about possible turbulence on your upcoming flight, does that make you less anxious? Does it matter at all? Or does it make you more anxious knowing that there will be turbulence? And obviously, question number 2 is why. And we really well, we bring this poll question up periodically because when you go over to SurveyMonkey, we can actually, get some real data from all these poll questions, and it helps us serve you better. And that's really why we're doing this on January 31st, New Year's Eve. And when Captain Ron said to me, I don't know, I think I'm gonna be in the air, I said, well, don't worry, Captain Eric and I to the rescue, and we're gonna bail you out, and nobody will ever know that you were gone. So or not.
It appeals to our baser urges to completely hijack the show, but I'm wrestling with my self-control right now.
Excellent. All right, so then let's move on. So please just take the 30 seconds to answer those 2 questions, and we will periodically update you. Now, the next thing is if you're not a member, actually, let's do this differently. If you're watching right now and you are a member of our Birds of a Feather Facebook group, please let us know. Like, just type it in, I'm a member. And if you could just maybe name one thing that you like about our group, please, that would really help, because I mean, we got, actually, I don't even know, but I think we're almost at 500 members, Eric, and steadily counting up. And I have, in our celebrations, I actually took 3 of our Birds of a Feather members, and I really want to celebrate with them because it was just really cool to see these posts. And then it's not just the people posting, it's all the comments. It's like the whole community coming together, supporting each other, being really helpful. Nobody is kind of doing the preaching and lecturing. Everybody is really kind of mindful and aware that we each fearful flyer has slightly different needs, slightly different ways of taking in support and information. And it's just, honestly, honest to God, that's the one thing I want you. That's why we want to get Captain Eric on Facebook, so that he can participate in the Birds of a Feather Facebook group.
I guess that could be my resolution, since I promised to do it a year ago.
That is true. So, and I'll be down there at the end of January. So then you have no excuse. We're just gonna make your profile.
Yeah.
All right. So let me just share the slides for our group. So, like I said, just again, actually, if you're watching it on Facebook, it's very easy. Just go on to our group section, and then just click join, and one of either myself or Captain Ron or Elaine will approve you, or Stephanie, and then you can be part of. And then that's a perfect segue to our Birds of a Feather holiday success celebrations. And the first one is really cool. It's Janice, and I mean, it's so. Again, I could only I just chose the victory post, but as you can see, lots of likes, lots of loves, lots of comments. But since 1993, she hasn't been back in in her home country. And I mean, I can't even comprehend that because I'm from Austria, and I go back. We go back every couple of years, and at least. So for me to think that I didn't have a chance to see my family, or I'm hopefully my family comes over here if I don't go there. It's just so phenomenal, and largely in part due to all the cool support and great efforts here in the group. So way to go, Janice, and I hope you enjoy it, and thanks so much for the pictures and for the videos. Really appreciate it.
Dieter, point out that
Yeah.
Janice is the apparently happier of the two people in the picture. Not
Yes.
Janice. That's not Janice. Okay.
That is probably Janice's daughter who says, "Oh, mom, come on." Well, I know because I have a 13-year-old as well, and we just became uncool overnight. So, all right. So the next one is another amazing member. It's Courtney, and Courtney made a post it must have been last week. I can't remember, but basically, she she got to Vermont, but then she looked at the forecast, and she saw that there was snow and wind and wintry conditions basically, and she actually felt more nervous than for the flight back, and we had some back and forth conversations, Courtney and I, and yeah, what can I say? She made it back. Look at this, snow and ice were not a big deal. And what we always encourage you to do is we always encourage you to talk to the flight attendants, if it's possible at all, introduce yourself to the pilots, and just so they know that you're aware of them. And actually, Captain Eric, we just talked before. I'm gonna turn off the slide so we can see each other again. We just talked before the show. Do you mind sharing that experience that you had the last time you were in action?
I was on the way home from Philadelphia on Christmas Eve, which I start referring to as the new Kona to cheer myself up, because that's where I would normally have been on the way home from. So I was in the airplane, and a passenger came down, happened to be a 40-year-old woman, and just the tears streaming down her face. And it's always so upsetting for me to see people that upset. But I was fortunately not, had got out of the cockpit to powder my nose or something, was getting back in and saw her. So I got her to step into the galley for a minute, and I asked her if she was a nervous flyer, and she said, "Oh yes," but she had put together the mental energy to force herself down there. So I talked to her for 3 or 4 minutes before we departed, and she started breathing much more slowly, and I could see her unspooling. And two fortunate things happened. We did not get the normal beating we do in the winter winds coming back to Phoenix, and it was a very smooth ride. So that part was good, and the flight attendants were real nice, and they were checking on her semi-frequently en route to make sure she was good. So she had a good trip. But there's just a whole lot of people out there that some were reaching and many were not, mostly because they're hiding from us, not because we're hiding from them. And she was one of them. So I hopefully she'll be watching sometime soon and help herself out.
Awesome. I mean, that is so cool, to be honest with you, because I mean, I see it all the time, when I fly, and it always makes for really meaningful conversations. Let's put it this way, and I'm sure that this woman perked right up when you had gave her your attention, and she realized that you're actually a human being, and so that really helps, because to be honest, that's what I hear often, is that you know, oh, I don't want to, you know, somehow bother the pilots, and sure, you guys have a lot to do, and so, you know, if sometimes you may ask, and the pilots are busy, but for the most part, even I introduce myself often to the pilots, just, you know, just saying hey, making that human connection, and for me, it's actually just sharing my gratitude, you know, um, because I do think of you guys as bus drivers. It's just that you guys have wings.
We do too.
But
especially the guys that are on the Airbus.
yeah, especially
Bus drivers.
yeah. Okay, so I want a shout out to a couple people. Susan Miglaccio, hey, happy New Year to you as well. Jim Duke, happy New Year's, and Joanna Hayes, hey, happy holidays, and also thank you. Joanna just typed in the chat that she bought the book. So let me just, Eric, are you still? Oh yeah, I see you. Okay, and then we got, who else? Jeremy Francis. Hey, happy New Year to you. And who else do we have here? We got Carol Reinhold. Welcome to the Birds of a Feather Facebook group. So glad you are joining us. And by the way, for you, you may or may not know this, but you can actually forward the invitation, like invite a friend of yours. If you know that your friend is afraid to fly, you can actually just invite them to the group, which some of you are doing, which is great. So it's just really, really cool how everything connects together. So I want to go back to our last success story for the night. I mean, there's a lot more, except we don't have that much time. So last one is Carly. Yes, you did it, Carly, and Merry Christmas to you as well. Carly is a great example of perseverance. Carly, I met Carly first, actually. Well, we both did, actually, Eric, and July 20th at the Cleared for Takeoff 201 class. And Carly actually flew with us that day. I don't remember where we flew to, Sacramento, maybe?
Yes, Burbank, Sacramento back.
Okay.
That's
So
right.
actually, no, I was from Phoenix, so it may not have been Sacramento. Anyway, wherever we flew, we came back. Everybody was happy. Carly obviously felt really empowered. And then something that's very common, and I'm gonna say is one of the biggest pitfalls to fall into, and that is, so she flew, but most of us don't fly often enough. And so when she did have to fly, I believe in November at some point, she got so nervous that she backed out of her flight. And at that point, she realized that she kind of needed to re-immerse herself. And so she booked a 50-minute coaching session with Captain Ron. She came to the 101 class in Phoenix, and she also got the harmonizer, the FearlessFlight kit. And she was even on the webinar as well, I believe, that we did. So she really immersed herself, got her confidence back, and she did it. So another great success, and I'm super proud of you. And I'm glad that you didn't give up on yourself and just kept focusing on your goal. And what airline is that, Eric? Do you?
I'm pretty sure that's an Allegiant
Allegiant.
Airbus A320 from looking at the paint job.
Okay.
And I'm often wrong, but never in doubt. But that's my first and only guess.
All right. Okay, so that's for our success stories. And as promised, we're gonna unveil to you this a sneak peek of the classes that we have coming up, the things that we're doing in 2020. And let me see if that goes. There we go. So in February, we start on Saturday with a 101 class in Phoenix. And then on the Sunday right after, we're going to have an online masterclass of flying over water will be the topic. We'll talk a little bit more later. And then you can see we have a 201 advanced classes in Phoenix on May 30th and September 26th. And we're coming back to, Burbank, California on October 24th. We also got a couple more online master classes, claustrophobia in May and turbulence in November. And then we have a couple more where we haven't quite decided what the topic will be. So that's our dates. And I believe, do you know if you can make it to the February 2nd, Captain Eric?
I feel highly confident that I will be able to. Okay. Yes, because I haven't bid for that yet, and I should be able to clear that with no trouble at all.
Okay, perfect. So we'll come back to the Flying Over Water webinar in just a moment, but for now, there's a lot going on actually in aviation news this past little while, and Captain Eric and I were talking, and we chose to highlight one crash actually, but stay with us because it's really important to kind of hear why we chose this particular one, and what is that particular flight, Captain Eric?
So this was covered, widely covered last week, and by the mainstream media, and picked up by CNN. A Piper Cheyenne PA-31, very high-powered, complex 2-engine turboprop airplane was departing Lafayette, Louisiana, on the way to the Peach Bowl, and that thing can seat 8 to 10 people and is very fast, 300-mile-per-hour airplane easily. Can fly up into the high 20s, low 30,000 feet. Really a tremendous airplane. And the interesting thing about this, or interesting thing, is that in general, in the last couple of weeks, 10 days, there have been, this was the most newsworthy one, but there have been several airplane accidents or crashes of what we call general aviation airplanes. And when we say that, it's a very large group. General aviation is a very large subset of flying. If you break out airline flying as a specific activity, military flying as a specific activity, general aviation encompasses almost everything else, from real high-powered complex airplanes such as the Cheyenne, or jet airplanes of more performance capability than airliners that are professionally crewed by pilots that are full-time pilots, do full-time training in approved training centers. And the other end of the spectrum can be Farmer Jones in his own little two-seat airplane coming off of a grass strip on his property. And he might fly it once in a while to go see his friend Farmer Smith 30 miles away. And the airplane could have no radios in it, no other kind of communications equipment, just absolute bare bones stuff. And that's also general aviation. And he doesn't need to talk to anybody, nor does he need all that equipment in the airplane, because he knows where his friend lives and he's been flying there forever and ever. So this spectrum is very, very wide. And when you see statistics and numbers reflecting accident rates in this group, because of the depth and breadth of the spectrum, the accidents can be concentrated in various smaller parts of it, but they're all looped into one deal. And what we saw last week was a crash of the Cheyenne. We had a twin engine airplane take off in Phoenix and had a double engine failure about 20 seconds after takeoff, and landed on a highway near the airport, which was highly unusual to have a double engine failure. and there were 2 or 3 or 4 multiple single engine airplane crashes of different circumstances. So the statistics, when they are compiled for that, show that general aviation is not as safe as airline flying, just because of the size of the group. And I should point out here that I mentioned earlier that on some of these high performance airplanes that are professionally crewed, the training program is exactly the same as it is for the airlines. But for a smaller single engine airplane, it's possible to be legal to operate the airplane and in compliance with all check rides and training, but have far less currency or recency of experience, which makes you sharp in the airplane. You can have far less recency of experience and still be legally allowed to fly, and you're just not going to be as sharp as you would be if you flew it more. And the other thing that Dieter and Ron are more of an expert than I am on it with the head part of it, but I recognize it when you're not in a crew and you're operating any of these airplanes as a single pilot, you mentally have to have a system for challenging yourself and being a self-critic instead of assuming that you have done everything right, because now there is no other crew member there assisting you or checking you. You have no balance. You're your own system of balance and checking, and it is much more, it's much trickier, and it takes much more introspection to have a system set up to ensure that you do that, that you're accomplishing procedures correctly, since you're the initial and the final, authority into how it is you're going to conduct the operation.
And I think that is so important to point out that general aviation and commercial aviation, which is really where most of you are going to fly, they're not even in the same arena in terms of I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but there are statistics out there that definitely show that everything that you've just said absolutely is true, and it is so much more difficult and challenging when you are the authority and there's nobody else to kind of like feed back to you and say, hey, did you really mean to do that? That is such a big thing. And so what is general aviation? So that is, for example, if you are flying from, let's say like Captain Ron, he's flying down to Cabo. I'm not sure which airline. And then, so that's commercial aviation. But if he is going on a sightseeing tour, like on a helicopter or on a plane, that would be general aviation, correct?
Exactly right.
Yeah. So the big thing that we want to point out is they're not the same. And even so, the reason I was debating, should we really bring that crash up or not? I mean, those of you who are afraid to fly probably heard of it anyways, because you guys know about these things before we do for the most part. But the reason why I wanted to bring it up, though, is to point something out, and that is when we have like a tractor trailer crash on, like I-90 or something up here in the northeast, unless somebody is killed, there really isn't a real investigation. And even if there is an investigation, it is not nearly as detailed and in terms of how the investigation will be conducted, and also what's going to be done with the findings. Like to me, what's the guy's name? I forgot, the chairman, Bruce Landsberg from the NTSB. He said it'll probably take up to a year to investigate this thing. And, to me, what that tells me is that even in general aviation, there's a whole lot more, what do you call that? Where there's
variables in the operation.
Yeah,
before?
variables in the operation, but in some way there's an oversight. If a car crashes, if a truck crashes, there isn't really any oversight committee that then gives recommendations that then an FAA or an NTSB kind of mandates. It is in the automobile industry, it is far less, that trucks or cars that are not very roadworthy or shouldn't be out there, you know, there's a lot less checks and balances. That's what I
Sure.
mean.
And this investigation will be every bit as thorough. By this investigation, I mean the crash of the Cheyenne will be every bit as thorough as an airline investigation. And as Bruce Landsberg said, a year or I would have guessed longer for the NTSB report to come out, and they will figure everything out, and it will be in great detail when they're done. So it'd be nice to say, well, we think X or we think Y, but we really don't know anything. But by the time this comes out, they'll know almost everything, and it will be a different theater and so on and so forth. But the NTSB report will be just as thorough as if it was an airline accident.
Awesome. All right, so let's go on to our upcoming Flying Over Water online masterclass. And so if you're flying to Hawaii or you're flying to Europe or Asia, then this class is really for you if you're a little bit worried or nervous about flying over water or freaking out, wherever you are on the spectrum. If water is part of the triggers that kind of get you going, then this masterclass is for you. We're obviously going to address your questions. We're actually, as you register, we ask you to put your most burning questions about flying over water into a form. And the question that most people have, and I can say this because my wife Rebecca actually was afraid to fly and was also afraid to fly over water, which well, it represented a bit of a problem because we wanted to get married in Austria, and there's this little pond called the Atlantic in between, and so that was a bit of a problem. So I know Ron often likes to say that we met online in one of those forums, which certainly is true. But the reason why I really believe in what Captain Ron is teaching and how he's teaching it is because not only does he bring the pilot perspective, but he also brings the psychological aspect, because as you probably know by now, if you've watched us before, fear of flying is an anxiety disorder. And as a matter of fact, it's actually number 9 of the top 10 anxiety disorders in North America. So quite prevalent. And yet there isn't a whole lot of support out there. And but the good news is, if you stick to Fearless Flight and you watch even just all the things that we put out there on a weekly basis or monthly basis for free, you can help yourself get better. Or you join our Flying Over Water online masterclass. We're going to have it live. If you can't make it live, the replay will be available to you. And obviously, you can post all your questions. We're saying 60 minutes. We did an online class in December, and I think we went 2 hours. So don't think you're gonna be shortchanged when Captain Ron's teaching. So maybe you want to clear your afternoon. But actually, I believe you might be able to join as well, right, Eric?
Yeah, I think I'll be available then for sure. And
which
he's right. We do have a propensity to run over.
Yeah, and that is just
The
because
party that is not present tonight is worse than the two of us, but we all have a propensity to run over, and we're running over right now.
Probably we do. Usually it's me who keeps the time. Now I don't have time to keep the time, but so we're the link is right down here. I'll put it in the description as well. 10 Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern time on February 2nd. Everything you want to know and need to know to overcome your fear of flying over water. Okay. So, Captain Eric, what do you think? How did we do?
Did pretty well. We're only 5 minutes over. Did we get everything that you wanted to hit?
Do you what? Let me just double check here, but
And we didn't blow ourselves up one time.
no,
which is actually very good.
which is actually very good. No, we did cover everything. Quick reminder, there is the holiday special is coming to an end on January 2nd. So if you want to grab the international best-selling book, How to Overcome Fear of Flying by Captain Ron, right now you can do that for $2.99 on Amazon. And otherwise, stay tuned for our first show next year. Will be next week, and we should have all the web pages and sites up so that you can sign up and register for all the goodness that we have coming up in 2020. So, wow, I think we did pretty good. Let me just
by blowing ourselves up. I mean, we stayed on the air the whole time, which is not easy for Dieter to manage to simulcast.
Yeah, but I think we actually broadcast everywhere, and I think audio video is good. Didn't hear anything back, and thanks to everybody for all the happy holiday and happy New Year's wishes. Really appreciate it, and I personally am really excited for 2020 because we got a lot of cool things planned here at Fearless Flight, and of course, we'd love to have you with us. Eric, any last words?
All good. Happy New Year. Be safe. See you next Tuesday. Pretty much.
All right. That's pretty much it. Thanks, everybody, and talk to you soon.